I think that we are all reinventing ourselves all the time. I've said this before, but I think the great delusion that we walk around with is that we are in some kind of perpetual stasis. We are the way we are. The world is the way that it is. This person behaves this way. They're always going to behave that way. But the reality is that everything is changing all the time, from the subatomic level all the way to, the vastness of the universe. There is no stasis. Everything is in flux and is in motion. The question is, how much are you directing that change versus reacting to the world around you? Well, it happens small until it happens big. The reinvention occurs in the micro actions that you're taking every single day. The tiny little things that perhaps no one even notices, that are creating muscle memory around new behaviors that perhaps are very uncomfortable to you. Like, hey, I'm going to engage with this person in a different way than I usually do, by being more direct or more honest, or I'm going to put down a boundary, or I'm going to say no to this and yes to this. Tiny little things repeated over time is what produces dramatic change. And it's like this curve, it's like this very slow curve until it asymptotes up. And everyone wants to talk about the pivot moment when it goes skyward. But the truth is, the real work is in the drudgery.
Correct.
And the difficult, anonymous work of shoveling shit every single day. In sobriety, they say, don't leave before the miracle. And I take that as a lesson in persistence. Whatever it is that you're pursuing to achieve or create or express in the world, I think a lot of people back out before that happens. And I think you're a perfect example of this. You're experiencing this with your show. You're having some large growth at the moment. And I think you even shared something about the fact that you've been doing this for a very long time, and most people may have backed out a long time ago, backed out before the miracle occurs or the growth spurt or whatever it is. So for me, it always comes back to perseverance, persistence, high pain tolerance, an ability to suffer through discomfort, a welcoming of doing hard things, and willingness, really, and that's a lesson that I learned in sobriety. Sobriety isn't for people that need it, it's for people that want it. And one of the first things someone will be asked when they enter the kind of ecosystem of recovery is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do different? How willing are you? Are you willing to make this your number one priority? And a lot of people will put words to that, but only time will tell whether those words are followed up by the action that demonstrates the level of willingness that is required to actualize anything of meaning in this world. With respect to Naval's quote, the only pushback I would give to that is this idea that that one is deserving, or that one is entitled to anything. You're not entitled to anything. You don't necessarily deserve anything. All you have control over is how you direct your attention and how you comport yourself. What are the actions that you're taking, how you're responding to the world around you. And when you drill that down into the tiniest little things that you're doing every single day and try to repeat that with just rigorous, relentless consistency, that is how you move mountains. That's how you build mountains. That's how you change your life. And that is not something that's going to trend on Twitter. It's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about it. It fucking sucks. And I wish it wasn't that way. And throughout all of my reinventions and the changes that I've made in my life, I didn't do them willingly. I did them because I was in so much fucking pain that I was boxed into a corner and felt like the only way out was through. In other words, when the pain of my circumstance exceeded the tremendous amount of fear that I was harboring about doing something different, doing something that would change the outcomes. Because if you're doing something in a certain way and you're always getting the same outcome, another recovery trope, that's the very definition of addiction, right? Like, until you start doing things differently, you're always going to get the same result. And yet we're so calcified around who we are and what we're doing, and this is my identity and this is who I am, that it becomes very difficult to break free of that and to live in a more fluid state where you are in the process of always trying to deconstruct the beliefs that you hold, and really get honest with yourself about the fallacy of the identity that you hold so dear. When you look in the rearview mirror, everything looks like it lined up perfectly to create this situation where I'm sitting across from you right now. But I can tell you, as somebody who has weathered more than a few large personal changes in my life, it is a very confusing, protracted time, and it takes a lot longer than people realize. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of judgment from other people. If you're breaking outside of a social expectation or a familial expectation, if you're trying something new, your peers, your friends are going to look at you a little bit differently. Perhaps they're not going to be as supportive as you might have expected. So there's a loneliness, I think, that is part of it as well. And I think with that is this testing process around your level of willingness, around your level of trust in yourself. And it's like being burned in a cauldron. Like as I've said many times, like, if you're going to be a phoenix, you have to burn first. And I don't know if there's an end run around that burning process, because that is the process that, creates the new version of yourself. It's almost mandatory that one goes through their version of that. So I've been tested financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I think I'm wired for it as a result of my background, the way I was raised, my experiences in swimming. I feel like I'm well equipped to kind of handle that, but I've been brought to my knees more than once. And I can tell you, in those moments, all you feel is fear and this overpowering impulse to retreat back to what you know. And it is in those moments, those are the moments of truth that no one sees, where you're at your breaking point. And that's where faith comes in, honestly. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be able to hold that vision for the better life of your aspirations. And you have to also have an almost transcendent self. You have to have an almost transcendent sense of some other force at play that has your best interest at heart, such that if your heart is true and you are truly engaged in the process of trying to align your actions with your values, and you have excavated your soul and done the interior work to try to really get honest with yourself, and you're earnest in that regard, I do believe that the universe will at some point conspire to support you. It's not going to be on your timeline. It's not going to be convenient. The results aren't going to look like you think they're going to look. But I've seen this play out in my life many times, and in the lives of many people that I'm close with. Lower companions is another term from recovery. As the adage goes, as you pursue your drinking or using career, it starts out fun. Drugs work, right? It's a good time. Drinking is pretty reliable. It's going to produce a certain kind of effect, right? And alcoholics and drug addicts, they don't become addicts because it's dysfunctional on day one. They do it because it's filling a need. It is doing something positive in their life. In my case, it made me feel like myself. It was like wrapping myself in a warm blanket where all my insecurities and my fears would vanish, and I was able to be a social person in social settings, which was something that was very difficult for me my whole life. And it functioned that way for quite some time until it didn't. And then your life slowly starts to degrade. You start making decisions that you rationalize that aren't in your best interest. It becomes a little lonelier. The chaos factor starts to increase. The negative repercussions of your behavior start to stack and escalate. It starts to get uncomfortable. Your higher companions, your good friends, the people that love you, who have your best interest at heart, start to flee from the hills. And you begin to search out other people who are vibrating at your wavelength, who are not going to give you a hard time for your behavior and are more than happy to do the thing that you want to do, which is to get loaded or get high. So you find yourself in really compromising, strange, sometimes scary situations with people you would not ordinarily hang out with because you share this one thing, which is you just want to lose yourself in this substance, or perhaps with people who are addicted to a certain behavior. It could be gambling. It could be, it's like anything. You're going to find people who are going to co-sign whatever behavior it is. And then as the addiction escalates even more, you start to run through those people. Even they don't want to hang out. And you get lower and lower and lower and lower until there's maybe that one guy. And if not, you're just home alone in a dark room with the shades pulled down. And that's how it ended for me, for sure.